Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collected podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, and welcome to TFYLP, episode 353. We are in November now, so November 3rd. And today with me, I have Rob down below.
Hi, everybody.
And Anna.
Hello, good afternoon, morning, noon.
Depends on where they're at, I guess.
Exactly, it's after morning, noon.
So today, we're back from TFCon now, and so we, wanted to kind of talk about some of the exclusives, just in general, and what kind of has drawn us into exclusives, not just necessarily TFCon, but Hasbro and BotCon and all that type of thing. So. But yeah, so we're fully back and ready to go. We went through Ouch My Wallet earlier this week. If everybody wants to check that one out, I think we went a little over an hour. I think, is that right, Rob?
I don't remember, but it was the normal time, so probably hour-ish.
Yeah.
And even with that, I know at least me and Peter still have piles of stuff we didn't talk about. So there'll be a return for that. The rest of the TFCon haul.
Yeah, I think we actually made pretty good time trying to get through, as much as we did. So that was a fun episode, just kind of talking about a lot of the stuff that we got at TFCon, and not just the figures, but also art. And the Artist Alley this year was really great. They had a whole separate room with it, and so yeah. But yeah, so today, based on that, Anna had a great topic, and I guess Anna, I'll let you kind of give your spiel on what today's topic is.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, my idea basically was for us to talk about more or less why we want or don't want exclusives. And this is after I went to TFCon, last week, trying to get myself excited for exclusives. Because it felt like if I'm going all the way, 16-hour drive to a Transformers convention, I should come back with one of the exclusives, not just figures that I could buy elsewhere, right? And then as I looked at the exclusives over the weekend, I just didn't want any of them, right? Like there weren't really any that made me think I really needed them. So it made me think, as I saw hundreds of people in line first thing on Saturday morning for those exclusives, what is it that people actually want in exclusives? Why is it that they're so motivating? Why is it that they're so exciting? And does anyone really go to shows just to get the exclusives? Because I always had this perception back in the day. I never went to BotCon, but I always had this perception that people went to BotCon just to get the toys. It really felt like when people came back with their BotCon experience, it was, this toy is cool, this box is pretty, this other toy is cool, ooh, we were surprised by this one, it's another exclusive toy. And that was it, right? That was like the thing I heard people talk about. But with TFCon, it doesn't seem to be as much of a thing anymore, especially with Hasbro switching their exclusives to store exclusives and Pulse exclusives and blah, blah, blah. So convention exclusives and motivation was mostly my focus.
Back in the, with the start of BotCon, my first one was 2006, so that was the second year Fun Pub ran it. And the 2005 year that they ran it, like, that box set was not popular. They sat on that for a decade before they got rid of them all. Some of the at show went better, and like some of those, had value, but the box set itself was ultra clearanced, by the end of it. But that being said, you're totally right. Like even then, what got people to come to the show, what got people into the door, that carrot was the toys. You know, it's like, here's toys you can't get anywhere else. And I mean, even going back to 1994, the very first BotCon, that was formed out of a few friends that really just wanted to get together and talk about Transformers and celebrate it, especially if you think back to 1994, there wasn't much happening. You know, G2 was a thing they were trying to get off going, but it was mostly repaints and it wasn't very successful. And Hasbro was just like, hey, here's some toys we made. You know what? We're not going to actually make these now. The Stunticon set, they're like, pick one and you can have them. And they're like, okay, we'll take Breakdown. And we'll make that an exclusive just to, again, help be a carrot, you know, a carrot to get some people to come out as well as to get some people to remember it by it, make it memorable. It was a very different era. But as time went on, what I saw, you know, I mean, and again, we're talking like almost 15 years now, just me alone. There's people that have more experience than me. It starts off with the toys are why you go. You're like, oh man, I got to get such and such toy. I need that character. You know, we're never going to see it any other place. Blah, blah, blah. You get there and then you meet people and then you meet their friends and their friends meet their friends. And eventually, like, especially by the end of Fun Pub, I'm like, oh boy, here's 15 new toys. I like 5 of them. I think the rest suck and I'm going to get rid of them. And I'm just going to keep the ones I like now. I'm not going to try to keep all the crap they turn out, but I'm mainly there just to see everybody. And that's really what it has become since then. So then when BotCon died, you know, it's like, well, where are we going to go now? Let's go to TFCon. And it's taken a few times, but this year right here was like the first time we had or it's the most solid turnout we've had of like post BotCon of people showing up from our little clique of the internet.
You know, I think it's interesting that first exclusive that you're talking about, that G2 Breakdown. I know Transformerland had quite a few of those at TFCon this year, and I think what were those going for, like $500 a pop or something? I don't know if they actually sold any, but
that's the question: is how many did you actually sell? There's the cheapest one was $560, and the corners were ripped, and so. Yeah. You know, like there was only supposed to be, I think, like 300 of them made, and I think they only sold like 194, something around there is how many they sold for the first show. But we always keep finding more of things as time goes on, you know. And I think he had like 15 of them, but I think they went up to like $800, you know, for the nicer cards.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of interesting, like where that G2 set outside of Breakdown, you know. We didn't even realize that the set existed, you know, more than, you know, the prototypes, like, you know, up to a few years ago. And then somehow, I don't know if it's the same set, but it seems like every year that, you know, some of those find their way to eBay or wherever. And I know at the show they had those. And then they also had some of the G2 Protectobots as well, which I think was another set that I don't know if we actually knew that those existed in form.
Yeah, and at when BotCon died, one of the shows that came out of that was Pete's RoboCon, which is kind of more of a return to form, small local show. Like it's not something you should drive 15 hours for, you know. But if you're in the area, you should go. It's fun. You know, it's Pete's new show, Pete Sinclair of Fun Pub, and who helped start the first BotCon. Like he didn't run it; the Hartmans ran it, but he was one of the 4 people that got that off the ground. You know, like, hey, let's get together. We should do a thing. And one of the things he told us at that first RoboCon was, you know, like you see those sets, the Protectobot set and the Stunticon set go for like $20,000 on eBay. It's insane. But he's like, they don't make 2 of a figure. He's like, it does not happen. Nobody goes out there and makes 2 of a figure. He's like, if they've made them, they are making them by the case. He's like, they probably made a few cases of them. That's I mean, it's not to say they're not rare. They are obviously extremely rare, but don't think, oh man, there's only 4 of these around. It's like, there's a bunch. Some former employee has a case of them sitting somewhere in his basement. And one day somebody's going to see them. Right. And, you know, when they say, oh, hey, I need to clean it out, or, you know, they go sick and somebody takes over the estate and it goes to auction, whatever. Like they're out there in bigger quantities than people think, you know.
Right, but even a case, like, I mean, it's not like that's all that much. So
no, it's not. But you know, they're usually out there in like 12 or 24 that type of 36, like those amounts, something to that nature. And so, yeah, when Transformerland all of a sudden shows up with what was probably 12, like with damaged cards on most of them, I don't know the story behind that. Not that close with Matt to ask, but
yeah,
it's definitely odd.
The thing I always thought was interesting about the BotCon stuff is that, there's a fair amount of people who would buy these sets or buy extras of the sets and then try to flip them, in their local group or on eBay or whatever in order to kind of help fund their trip. And it always seemed crazy to me that, and I know they're all limited run, limited quantity and things like that. They're hard to get a hold of, but it just seems nuts to me on some of these that it's a Hasbro figure that costs, whatever, $20. And, these guys are, selling this stuff for $500 or whatever it might be for a full set of these things, to where it's, 5 or 10 times the price of what it
usually
is. So.
They were around 4 to 5 times the price of, like, if it had just been a retail release. But this is a big problem a lot of people made, and I will criticize FunPub into the earth, like deep down into the core. They screwed up so many things, but now I have to defend them. You did not, like, the Primus package wasn't, hey, here's 6 toys for, $300, and by the end, like $500. That's not what it was. It was, here's 6 toys in a custom packaging with 3 days of convention. All your signatures are free. All your pictures are free, with the exception of Judd Nelson and Frank Welker. Those are the 2 actors that they had special add-on packages for. Like, if you go to TFCon, you pay I think I paid $50 for the weekend. You don't get anything but in the door. If you want to go get an autograph, that's another $40 to $100, depending on the actor. If you go to any other, like, kind of generic comic cons, like little local shows, photographs and signatures aren't cheap for those people. And usually, I mean, you probably have more experience with this firsthand, Lucas, but, a lot of those guys, either the convention pays them a check or they guarantee them an amount they will make. Yep. It's like, you're going to make at least $5,000 if you come to this show. If you don't, I'm liable for the rest, and I'll write you the rest of that check. So FunPub just straight up paid for them. Said, here's your money. We're going to write you this. We're going to give you this amount of money, and you just come and you sign, and you're going to sign for these hours in the day. And that's what people were paying for. Like, yeah, you're paying for the toys, and you're paying for the presentation and all that, but the price was a 3-day convention that you could pretty much run the gamut. Not everybody went to do signatures and autographs. They didn't care about that. But it got you so much more than that. And then, yeah, sure, you can also then, usually even towards the later ends when the box sets didn't sell, the market value wasn't so great on them anymore. You could still sell them for about what you paid if you didn't care about the box set at all. And most of your trips will subsidize. You got a 3-day convention for free. Maybe just your hotel room,
Right.
So
that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, it's something important to keep in mind, too, when you look at it in the past.
I think that big price of entry is what kept me away, because, like, one way to look at it is if you pay for your entry to TFCon, you come home with nothing, right? But the other way to look at it is kind of an a la carte type thing. Like, you can spend $50 if you don't care about any of the exclusives, $150 if you want 1 exclusive, $250 if you want 2 exclusives, $350 if you want 3 exclusives, and so on. And I also feel like it's different because the way it came out, and especially on the resale, it feels like, even though, like you said, they threw in a bunch of other stuff, it feels like you're paying, like, 3 to 5 times as much for a retail figure, whereas with, like, the TFCon exclusives, you're getting a figure for maybe $10 more than the retail version. Like, the markups are pretty small in general compared to what we saw, like, especially aftermarket BotCon markups.
Well, and the other thing with TFCon, the TFCon exclusives, a lot of times they put more paint on them as well. Like, I know MMC does this. A lot of times they're doing special packaging. So I know the G2 figures that both MMC and Make Toys are releasing, those have packaging that is similar to the way that the old Hasbro packaging was as well. So it's like they're doing a lot of special, like, and I know you touched on this before, Rob, about BotCon, where they're making special packaging. So, I mean, it sounds like that they kind of are doing a similar thing for TFCon as well. So,
And FunPub also, as the years went on, kept doing more and more beyond that on the toys themselves. They started getting new. I mean, they always got new heads, new custom heads in the set. Like half of the toys would be a new head. They started adding like new molded parts, and then they started giving us effectively a whole new figure when they did the Pretender shells. So like, and they would also try to reach out and get molds that were released, before brand unity, molds that were released in Japan but didn't come out here. Like a lot of the microns from Prime, they didn't come out in the U.S. And so they started dropping them in wherever they could. They got the breakdown mold, got a U.S. release because it never came out in the U.S. They said Hasbro said that the parts count on thing was insane. It would never fly in U.S. shelves. So they did that. So it's one of those, the cost was totally mainly for the convention, but they kept trying to throw more into it. And then, of course, toy prices kept going up. It all kept going up along with it. But, that's the reason why, my TFCon G2 Mirage here is, I think, maybe $10 more than the normal release, but there's no convention attached cost to this. It's literally just to produce the figure.
Right.
They weren't selling just the toys. They were funding the convention and keeping it not a la carte. And that was, a very conscious choice. They did not want people to have to pay anything else. You paid the Primus package. They wanted you to be kind of a high roller.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is interesting as well about some of these exclusives, especially at TFCon, is that they're no longer convention exclusives, really.
Not really.
So, back in the day, and there's been several, I know for the most part, I'm trying to think if there's any that have been like this. So I know in like TFCon 2016 that they had in both Chicago and in Toronto, they did the Mirage. It was partially clear for MMC. And there was a couple other figures. There was also like they did in their Anubis, I think. There was like the Death's Head. And those figures, so they sold out right away. Like it was pretty quick, like right when people got in the door. A lot of people that were at the show didn't get them, and there wasn't like they weren't selling them separately. MMC wasn't at the time. And so, but what happened is I believe there was several dealers that actually like went and bought a bunch, and then they were selling them at the show for a markup themselves, and then other people were selling them on eBay and whatnot as well for a premium. And so I know that it seems like a lot of these companies are trying to actually get away from that. Like they want the exclusive to be something that is enjoyable, that's for you for the show, but they don't want it to be like where you're marking it up and it's suddenly someone is reselling it for twice the price and scalping it and whatnot. So like
right on the floor.
Right on the floor, right.
Yeah.
And so what MMC has done is they actually they limit the sale of some of the figures. So I think it's usually you can only buy a couple, I think, of each figure at the show. And then, especially what they did this year is they really limited what was at the show. And then immediately, like at midnight, I think, or something like that. It was like overnight on Saturday night of the show. It went up on Planet Steel Express, which is their MMC's like shop or whatever over in Hong Kong. And so pretty much like you didn't have to go to the show. And honestly, there's probably some people that potentially could be missing out because they're doing other things for the convention and aren't sitting there waiting online for it to go. And I know there's a lot of people at the show this year that wanted that the bulkhead that MMC did that sold out, the Rat Bat, like both of those sold out pretty quick.
Well, I don't know about right now, but on Out to My Wallet, we were talking about them, and the two reformatted ones that you just mentioned are on Wednesday, at least, were still available for pre-order on Planet Steel Express, but both Regenesis and Pharaoh were sold out. So it's kind of opposite. So, and then again, it's really hard to know, like, because I've heard beforehand, they've had troubles getting their stuff made in time to get to the show. Like I think at the Chicago show last year, one of the exclusives got there like 2 days after the show ended. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
This is nothing. And so you don't know did they really just not get all their stock in, or how much of it was planned. There's like so many logistics that go in, and a lot of drama over in third-party factory land, which is, I don't know, is what it is, I guess. I think it's hard to know where the line is. I mean, I think we've seen even with TFCon themselves, though, how much they've changed how they want to handle exclusives, because originally, remember, they had TFCon exclusives. X-Transbots did some toys for them for a few years, and they weren't hot sellers, and they got tired of sitting on them. And, whereas FunPub was like, we're going to do all the things, and it's all going to be through us, and you're going to get a whole convention experience for your money. TFCon went the opposite direction. They're like, we're going to sell you a ticket, and everybody else is just going to figure it out. They want the third-party companies there to have an exclusive, but they want the third-party companies to take that risk and to own that. They don't want to pay for guests. They want the guests to make their own money there. And I'm sure they got, again, those guaranteed minimums and whatnot that they have to cover. But, they're kind of like stepping back and doing it kind of more of a typical convention style that way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with that is that you have to think of it as like, okay, like BotCon, the Collectors Club had their own storefront that they're selling stuff out of. Like TFCon doesn't have that. And so that's the thing is that when they are bringing stuff in, they don't want to take that risk up front and get these figures, because if for whatever reason, if it isn't a good seller, they're stuck with it. What are they going to do? How are they going to sell that stuff? Put it
on eBay and lose all your fees.
So yeah, I mean, it's just too much risk for the show, and honestly, that can tank a show. I know, I think was it Shardicon or was it another one where pretty much the cost of they had issues with getting those figures created and
a couple shows.
Yeah, so they ended up kind of that's part of the reason why the show is no more. Is because of that, because they just didn't have the money to do that. So yeah, I mean, and that's the same way, so with TF Expo, a lot of those are somewhat customs, essentially of Hasbro figures. But the reason it's done that way is because, we're not partnering with a retailer for that. And so if we actually went and offered a figure that was $100, right, and did 300 of those, that's $30,000, right?
Yeah, who's going to pony that up?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is if it doesn't sell, then you're stuck with it. So that's kind of the thing. Plus, a lot of our attendees aren't necessarily looking for that, and I think that's the thing. It's interesting too with TFCon, the audience online versus what's at the show, right? Where I've seen this at TFCon and TF Expo, where a lot of the people are trying to go after either official stuff or they're trying to go after something that's unique, those MMC reformatted figures. Whereas it seems like that a lot of the community online on the Facebook groups, they all want that third party masterpiece, the fans toy stuff and the MMC things that complete their masterpiece collection.
Oh my God, dude! Not to interrupt, but if Fans Toys did an exclusive for TFCon, that would be insane. That would be insane. Please continue.
that would probably be worth some money, I would bet, especially if it was the first one. So
they have such a devout following.
Yes.
So one thing I was going to say a while back was that I think that the two Mirages, I believe, were the only ones that had numbers put on them as far as the number they were producing. If I'm right, I'm trying to remember correctly here. I think the other two just had kind of that vague, this is an exclusive, but they didn't say the number they were going to produce.
Is it on the package or something, or?
I think it was on one of the posts about it. I believe both of them had a number attached to them. And that may have been part of why they were more motivating to sell out, especially once they went online, is just knowing that there might be a limit. And I always wonder about that, right? Is the fact that we know it's going to go on Planet Steel Express, and the fact that we know that there's going to be enough produced that people will be able to get them, and there will be an aftermarket for them, does that lead to a little less motivation to seek them out, right?
100%. I think, the direct topic itself, I think, is literally translates to fear of missing out. Humans are bad about that. You tell me I can't have something, well, I really want it now. It has to be something I think there's some interest in to begin with. And I think that's why the big difference between BotCon level exclusives and then TFCon level exclusives and then other small show exclusives or small vendor exclusives. I can list off, like Big Ten Robots has their Sting Thing exclusive that they sell at conventions, and then they're still selling them. They sell a few, or I don't know how, not more than a few, but every show they sell some. But that's taking a few years to get through that stock, And then Mega Toy Fan, they made some exclusive as well. I believe also through KFC. Technically, they made some tapes. That was like Shattered Glass, one of their combiner tapes, and they're still selling that stock years later. They made these and they take a long time to move.
Right.
They're cool, but they're not enough of a draw. But those people had to pay to get them made, and they're still kind of sitting on that stock, making it go through slowly. Versus, I think if you're BotCon and you're Hasbro, the exclusives have a much bigger draw because you're the official brand. I think that's going to be you're kind of the king player. Whereas once Hasbro killed third party at BotCon, it used to be fine, and then Hasbro was like, no, blah, 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 go get it out, and that's their show. They can do what they want. TFCon became branded kind of like the third party con. Even though there's plenty of Hasbro stuff there, but Hasbro no longer partook in Hasbro Canada. They backed out of it. They used to, do a panel there. And so it just became about a place where third party wouldn't have to live in the shadows or whatever. And I think that's why exclusives gravitated towards there. And I think that's why their third party exclusives are successful there. But yeah, the motivation isn't there like it was for BotCon exclusives. It's much smaller.
I think for me, a lot of my motivation is like I usually like to buy one exclusive from each show, and it's part of it is that like I want to have this figure, I want to put it on my shelf. I can go and look at that shelf and then kind of bring back some of the memories. Like, oh yeah, that was TFCon 2017, and that was 2018, and whatever. And I remember I was here with this person in line at that show and whatever. And so that's kind of for me. Whereas like I don't necessarily want all the exclusives that they offer, but a lot of times I want to try to pick out one exclusive to kind of just commemorate the show for me.
But you didn't get it in 2019.
Yeah.
Why?
You broke your one rule.
You did. I'm curious. I have to know.
So there was none of the exclusives this year were anything that like really like motivated me like in years past. I might have if the black and gold Sphinx I think was probably the favorite one that I had, but that one sold out pretty quick. I wasn't going to stand in line to get it. So a lot of times in years past I've been able to just hang back and then an hour later just walk over to the booth and get it. This has been one of the first years that I think that the watermelon Sphinx was the only one that was still left, and it just didn't really motivate me that much. But the one thing I think is interesting about the show this year is like all those exclusives sold out, and I have no idea how many they actually had. But when we're in LA, they had stacks and stacks of those exclusives. Like I don't really feel like the exclusives now. Again, they weren't MMC. MMC had their little penguins that they offered because they couldn't get a figure out in time. But they had the Make Toys. The G2 Starscream was one of them, and I'm trying to think what. Oh, they had the blue the Striker Manus or whatever, like the blue repaint of that Delta Magnus or whatnot. So, but all of those, like you could literally just go anytime, like the entire show. I could have walked in Sunday afternoon and picked one up. I think Chosen Prime, I think, was actually selling those at the show this year, trying to get rid of them. Like, I mean, for whatever reason, those particular ones just did not sell as well as some of the MMC ones. And again, it could just be like, I mean, we don't know how many they're producing, so it might be something where that MMC is producing them in lower numbers. We don't know.
I think part of the change in the perception in exclusives is the way what Hasbro produces now. It feels like anything is possible to come out in mainline. And I want to bring up a figure that broke the internet when it happened. It broke the Transformers community. This is Thrust from the classic Seekers mold. Thrust, Dirge, and was it Thundercracker? It may have been Thundercracker. So Classics came out in 2006 and was a filler line in between main lines, and they didn't do all the Seekers. They did, I think, Ramjet, Starscream, and I can't remember if it was Skywarp or Thundercracker.
I think it was Thundercracker. Wasn't Skywarp was part of like a Target exclusive, I think.
That's right. He was with Ultra Magnus.
With Magnus.
Yeah, that's right. So it was Thundercracker didn't come out. So Thundercracker, Thrust, and Dirge. The Transformer fandom was aflame that was an exclusive all of a sudden. And, from BotCon's point of view, they were like, Hasbro kind of told us, you need to do these because they are not happening otherwise. They're like, we're not going to do it. Like, you need to do this to get this out. This is the only way to get it out. So BotCon exclusives for a while there became, the mindset was, if you want to complete your collection, you're going to have to go through BotCon. So that exclusive draw was super high because my Seekers aren't complete. I need my main 6 Seekers. And then, of course, now we can look in the past. What happened? Hasbro redid all those figures in the main line because it was so popular. Now we've had years now of what was supposed to be a 6-month filler line that is now our mainline toys that effectively has no fiction behind it. It's starting to get some, I guess, the IDW comic now is really tied into the figures, I think, coming out. In theory, we had the Machinima series that nobody really watched too much of, it's obviously grown, it's changed. All those figures got remade. But I think that was part of it is there was a lot less product coming out back in the time. So, buying the Fun Pub toys, because you wanted to buy more toys. It wasn't like today where there's just a glut of product out there to buy from Hasbro alone. And Hasbro's doing so many store exclusives now to kind of fill in that gap left by BotCon. So we got selects that are exclusives that are pretty expensive. You get the Amazon 3-pack exclusive, which has 2 figures that you can pick up at mainline. And, Impactor's just slightly different deco. Mirage is different at least.
In a bad way.
In a bad way, yeah. And so I think even if BotCon came back and they had exclusive figures there, I feel that our psychology on it has changed enough that it wouldn't be the same as it was back then. And then again, FunPub even ran out of steam. They started coming out every year. Here's 15 figures, and we're going to do the sub service, which is another like exclusive 10, 15 figures or whatever it is. I think people got numb to it. And you start getting pickier and choosier. You know what? I'm just going to buy what I like now because I can no longer keep it all. We've been collecting too long. And so I feel the drive from all went down. You just kind of buy more what you like. But it can still help get people to a show, which is for convention exclusives, that's the draw, is that you want more people at the show. And I know TFCon wants their exclusives to sell out. And the scuttlebutt I've heard is they are trying to get the people bringing them to like make the numbers in such a way so that they sell out, and they sell out early, and so that people also buy that VIP pass, which is like $100, another extra $50 to get to buy them the night before, and they want them to start selling out the night before, so that the convention can't keep making money. Some of it feels a little shady, but I look at how many conventions went by the wayside because they didn't have enough business focus at all. So I can understand some of it, but
yeah. And I know, moving on to the store exclusives. Sorry,
I wasn't ready to move on to that.
Go for it, Hannah.
Yep.
I wanted to go back to that because we didn't really explore the whole fear of missing out thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious if people will buy figures or molds they didn't really like because they're an exclusive or because they're a character they really wanted. And I want to use myself as an example here because God, how many years ago was it that Moss did the store exclusives versions of their Skiff? Was that like 3 years ago now? 2?
Probably. Yeah,
2 or
they
3.
did one for TF
2 or 3.
Nation.
Yeah, they did like a TF Nation one. Did they do a TFCon one? I want to say. Right. Okay. So they put their various versions of the same figure out at different stores. And one of them was a version of Cliff, which is a character that hasn't gotten very many toys, but I happen to like. And I, at the time, told myself, no, I shouldn't pay that much for a relatively simple figure that I don't like that much. And then it started to get rare. And then it wasn't available anywhere. And then suddenly it became a quest. I had to have that figure. I just waited for Lucas to sell his for, multiple years until I could finally get a hold of it. And I was willing to pick this figure up, even though between the original version and the one that was put out at Expo this year that I got to have cat spots on, this is my third version of this figure. I have soured on the mold itself. I really don't like it that much compared to what's coming out now. I've soured on the company, and I still went out of my way to get this thing just because it's rare and it's a character that I had no representation of that I like. So I'm just curious how motivating it can actually be to get that, because some people were excited to get like a Senator Ratbat type character just because, he had a comic appearance and not many people had a toy of him, so they wanted one like that. So I'm just curious, is that like the thing people should focus on, is making these like kind of obscure characters? And even if it's a crap mold, even if it's, some sort of awful thing that we wouldn't want to see again, will they still buy it?
Yeah, I think so. Case in point, the female combiner.
Oh, God.
Like some of those, I don't know, they might have been store exclusives or whatever. I bought it all online. None of it was hard to get, but it's like, beggars can't be choosers. These molds suck, but now I actually have something for all the characters from that G1 scene, that G1 episode. And, it's the same reason with Watermelon here. I do love like the wacky side of G2, just the kind of more mainline side of G2 doesn't interest me too much, like Superion, whatever, and Devastator, he's just yellow, whatever. But something that's just out there like this, no one else is likely to ever adapt that paint scheme for Mirage. So that's cool to me. And it happens that it's actually a good figure from a good company, that really helps it out. But that really, appeals to me and is why I ultimately, because first I was like, I really like the idea. I don't know if I can do the room. And he's like $110, so I don't really know if I want to spend it or whatever. But ultimately I caved because it's that fear of missing out. Nobody else is going to do it.
Right.
So you jump on it.
And I heard people saying, I heard some, even from our peer group / podcast group, I heard people saying, well, at this point, since Hasbro is doing so many different selects and other exclusives, we might end up getting that. I still don't believe that, but I think that's an interesting optimism because they're kind of telling themselves, I don't need to buy Watermelon Sphinx because Watermelon Siege Mirage is just over the horizon. I doubt it, but
I do think anything's possible at this point.
Yeah,
Yes,
you never know on that. But yeah, I will say like this Make Toys, the G2 Jazz that I have here in picture, like that one was really hard to track down. Like I didn't go to TFCon Canada myself, and I had to track it down online and pay a premium for it. But it was one of those things where it's like, oh, this is rare. Like I'm not going to be able to get it otherwise. Like I've been collecting G2 masterpieces, so this is the only way I'm going to be able to get this figure. More than likely, I really like the mold, all that type of thing. So I ended up paying a premium in order to track it down. So I don't really like them doing figures where like the only way to get a specific character is like via an exclusive. Like I would rather it be like some type of a different deco, either premium deco or different or whatever. And the reason is because not everyone can make it to these shows. And as much as we're talking about the fact that there can be readily available, via the internet or whatnot, it's still not the same as a regular release. And so that's the thing that's like really frustrating, that if you're actually trying to find some of these figures to be able to track it down. I know like these MMC figures, a lot of these exclusives they do as a show, like the one for this year is readily available. I can go get it and whatnot. Like if you want the one from like 5 years ago, it's going to take some doing to try to find that. And I know that, for a while I was trying to track some of those down, and it is hard to do, or it's very expensive to do, to get some of those after the fact.
But obscure characters are obscure for a reason, right? Like, not that many people would go out of their way to get a Glyph figure. Like, that's just not a character most people think, ooh, I have to have her in my collection.
Or know about.
Right. A lot of people don't even know it's an obscure character. So, ever how many Moss made of these was probably enough to satisfy the wacky people who really wanted it.
I go back to this guy. This is a mainline character.
Right.
Those three Seekers were, but at the time, nobody can see the future perfectly. They're like, this is the only way it's happening. We're trying, we want to get so some fans can get it. This is what we can do. Here you go. And Hasbro did take it to heart that, oh shit, we should have released those in mainline. And they did later on, which killed the BotCon value. So be it. It's toys. Ultimately, there's always money behind it. These things aren't free. And so it's, do you risk putting some weird character out, making whatever, like 50,000 units that Hasbro needs to make to have it in store shelves or not? If this was all your money and you're running it, you have to make those decisions. And especially, if you're running a convention or you're running a store or whatever you're doing, you're having an event. If that can help get people to it to make the money back, I think you do what you have to do to try to be successful. Not trying to be a dick to people. And most things, like even BotCon, you could get non-attendee sets. They were limited, but you could get it. But there were stuff that you only could buy at the show. And that's, they always had that carrot to get to it because the show needs to have people at it, or else the dealers quit coming. And if the dealers quit paying for their tables, you're in trouble.
Well, and as you mentioned, too, with the voice actors that are the guests as well, that you need people to spend money on autographs and whatnot in order to make their minimum. So
I think we're kind of going the other way now where, they used to be at BotCon, it was there to get you there. And as the fandom is aged, even though we obviously have new blood coming in and we need that to stay alive, I do, with so much available, it feels like some of the exclusives now are trending more towards what you were talking about at the beginning, Lucas, of now they're more of a memorabilia piece. Here's something, maybe it's not so expensive, like the TF Expo exclusives. They're not there like, oh, you'll never get this character anywhere else necessarily, but it's, hey, you come to the show, it's a local show, we'll have some fun, you can pick up a toy, something to remember that by. It's not like you're like, oh man, I had to have that. It's the only way to get such and such. It's more of a fun thing to buy. It's not going to break your bank.
Yeah.
Kind of swaps it around a bit.
I'll never forget my mouth on a spaceship figure.
And it's on his crotch.
So goofy.
So
it's also, yes.
It's a hungry crotch.
So let's move on to store exclusives, though, because I kind of want to talk about that. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but
they're so boring.
So the store exclusives, like I kind of have mixed feelings about some of these store exclusives because in one side it's the only way that we're going to get some of these characters. Like Hasbro's just not going to be able to put out infinite waves of this. And I think the other thing that Hasbro's been doing, with their exclusives, like so many of these people were complaining about repaints, just in general. Like Combiner Wars was really bad about it, and people are saying, oh, like so instead of like getting 6 waves with like 2 waves of repaints, now Hasbro is releasing like 4 waves, and then they're releasing the stuff as exclusives. And so in one hand, I really enjoy it because I'm able to get some of the ones that they've done, like the Galactic Man, or the G2 Megatron, or even the Ratchet and whatnot, are it may be the only way that we get some of those or like complete the seekers that we're doing. But then on the other hand, it's really annoying to be able to have to track down some of that stuff. So some of it, they make it pretty easy, where, I know they had like the night of 1,000 pre-orders at SDCC where it's like literally everybody except for Walgreens put their pre-orders up at once. And so, and I think that really hits, Anna, on your psychology point or whatever, right? Is all these exclusives went up at once and I didn't even have time to think about it. Like, I'm just like, I gotta have it. And I just like literally ordered everything because I didn't want to have to worry about it selling out and whatever. And I just did it. And then once I did it, like I didn't end up canceling mine.
That bugs me. The click speed games of exclusives, like the fact that I did actually want that Ghostbusters MP10. I was interested in it. And I did actually get on right when it was supposed to go up. And it was already sold out by the time that my computer was able to, click the button to add it to my cart. Even though I was there, the second it was supposed to go up. So I really don't like that game. Like, I feel like if something's going to be that limited quantities, it almost needs to be sold in person so that there can be a line, that there can be like a way to get it to wait for it. Because when it comes down to like your internet speed and your latencies and all that stuff, that is extra frustrating to me.
I think it comes down to collecting needs to be fun.
Right.
And like I experienced this, and this isn't with exclusives, but I'm a Ninja Turtle collector as well. And buying NECA's cartoon line is a nightmare because it's only at Target and it's not stocked through Target. And maybe it'll be there on the shelf. I've never seen them on the shelves. I have the STC set, and that's all that's come out now. But Bebop and Rocksteady are about to come out. They are going to be listed online at Target, but I'm going to have to play the click game, that type of thing. And it's gotten very not fun,
right?
And so if people want to complete their collection, we get that enjoyment out of completing it. Like you have Glyph there, where you had the chance for it, you passed on it, you slept on it a bit, and then you said, "Oh crap, I can't get it anymore now. I have to have it." And that can be a fun aspect of it because our brains are weird. Like
I had plenty of time to get this figure.
Yeah.
Like I really just slept on it because I wasn't buying more expensive figures yet. How has that changed in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
However.
Yeah. So, I think in my ideal world, I really like how Super 7 does things. Like they're not a perfect company, but what do? They make their stuff to order. And so if you want to collect their lines, you get like a month pre-order. What's happening well in advance of that anyways. You can save money, have it ready to go, buy it. Some of the lines, they might force you to buy the whole wave. And that's not the end of the world, to be honest, for a collector. But you can collect the line and not hate yourself. And I would like to see more of our, like we have the technology, go towards being able to pre-order and more make to order type stuff. That way retailers aren't left holding the bag of a bunch of stock that didn't sell, but collectors aren't left. I got the money. I want to give you my money. I want this in my collection. Why can't I give you my money? I feel we could have that, and we just don't yet.
That's one of those things too that Hasbro, and they've actually done a pretty good job with a lot of their exclusives on SDCC. Like in prior years, it was not that hard to get a lot of their figures. But that Ghostbusters Prime, like anyone could tell that thing was going to be a hot seller, right? And because it's
I didn't think it would.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Because like the buzz that I saw online from both Ghostbusters fans and like there was a lot of people that like I saw online, like just people in other toy groups that I'm in that are non-Transformers related. Like that was the figure that they're like, I want that because that. Like I can kind of check 2 boxes that it's an Optimus Prime figure and it's a Ghostbusters figure, like done, and so, but nevertheless, like, that figure specifically, like, and they offered that thing for like a crazy price. It was like $150, which, you're expecting is probably going to be at least 200 and somehow they came out with a really good price. So, like, why can't they just say, hey, they made a certain stock and then they take pre-orders for another one, and then the other one's going to be available like in however many months that they'll do a second run of it or something, along those lines. But I guess at the same time, it gives them a lot of marketing to, like, them selling out. Like, there's probably lots of stories that, IGN or whoever is doing stories like to say, oh, look at that. The hot new toy that you can't get is, this Hasbro Ghostbuster thing.
So if you're running a physical event, again, you need people to show up for it. And so if you make it too convenient, like where's the balance there? Because imagine, if you had TF Expo and you have some awesome exclusive figure and you're like, don't worry, guys, you'll be able to order it online later. No one's going to go out of their way to go to the show now. People that might have been like, oh man, if I could only get that at the show, yeah, you're going to kick my ass. I'm going to drive the 4 hours to get there, or whatever that cutoff limit is for people.
I know San Diego Comic-Con is really hard up and that they need more.
Yeah, they're not the best example, but I mean,
I know. There's, I completely agree on other shows, and that's part of the reason is that you can only get some of these from those shows. But it's like, San Diego Comic-Con is just such a beast now that, I mean,
they don't need anything.
Tickets for that sell out immediately, just for the show itself. But, getting back to the store exclusives, though, I was going to say is the downside is that a lot of these, it's like makes it hard to find. And so, for example, in a lot of companies like Amazon now is doing it where, like, the initial run, you have to be an Amazon Prime member in order to be able to get the figure at the very beginning. Huh. And Target did the same thing with that Red Wing figure, that you had to be a Red Card member in order to get it. And so I was able to get it. I didn't have it because I have both of those services. But then there was a ton of people that, that didn't have, couldn't get it. And then I think not only that, like all of these exclusives, like most of them are geared towards US fans. And so, I can go down to my Walgreens and find a Ratchet. I can go to Target. I can, and get the Rainmakers and get all these. And I can order this stuff freely off of Amazon and I don't have to pay a markup. But if I'm a collector in Europe or I'm in Australia or wherever, Canada or something like that, it's much harder for me to actually be able to procure that stuff. That,
I mean, sometimes other countries gets their own, like, was it EB Stopper, EB Games, or something like that? They got the Ratchet in Canada a while back or something. Yeah. But yeah, they're much more limited examples for that type of stuff. Like I know Nemesis Prime and Alternators. He ended up showing up. He was hard to find in the U.S. back in the day, but he was like mountains of them in Australia.
Right.
But yeah, those are the exceptions, not the rule.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of that idea of making it harder for some people to get it, just the Prime and the Red Card and all that. That wasn't fun. Like Rob said earlier, that just wasn't a fun thing to do. Right. To talk to your friend and be like, hey, I just got this cool thing. Are you going to get it? And they're like, well, I'm not a Prime member, so I actually can't get it.
I will say,
that's weird.
You hit on another thing I wanted to bring up, Anna, there is that with a lot of this stuff, when it's physical location, but I guess now it's even like digital subscriptions even are a problem. Having friends is a big help for that. I mean, I couldn't make BotCon 2010. I had a buddy buy all the toys for me. I bought a non-attendee set for the main box. But, buddy brought me all the stuff. But then we had the Anubis, the Death's Head, fellow cast member Christian Russell was in line to get it, and it sold out like to the person in front of him. And he was like, oh, man, it's like I told Rob I'd get that for him, and it was fine. I knew somebody else there. I had Sid. Sid's like, yeah, I can get you that, so he got it for me. He knows people. So knowing people can help a lot. And having friends in the community is what kind of really, the toys are the background noise to making friends and showing up. So I think that's how it should be. The toys get you there, but, people will keep you coming.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, and that's exactly right. And I've done that too. Where I've ordered some items that are exclusive, and I've done it a couple times where I've shipped it to friends in Canada or I've shipped it to other friends in the US and whatnot, but it's still expensive because, I have to pay for it. And then, I have to they have to pay to ship it somewhere else. So that's an additional cost on it as well. And, you run into a lot of this stuff where that, somebody's Walmart down in Florida has a zillion of these things. And then, the Walmart by you doesn't have it at all. So.
And some of that's just a distribution issues too, like just mainline stuff you can't find, people should be able to find that. But again, I'm kind of like death of brick and mortar. Just let me order it online anymore. But that's a different topic for another day.
No. Yeah. 100% on that. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I understand. I don't see how, I've kind of switched where, I'm primarily a mainline collector now, and but I can get all that stuff easily and cheaply in the US, but I don't know. I mean, if I was in like South America or something, I mean, shoot, I'd probably just be a third party collector because it's not going to be that much more expensive to, to collect all that stuff.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
That's an interesting point to think about.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of go through some other different types of exclusives. And I just kind of got a variety out. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of BotCon exclusives. Talk about them, like, whatever. And see, like, do these make us feel differently from the psychology aspect of it? So, we've talked to death, I feel, kind of about, like the TFCon exclusives.
Yeah.
Like that style. The at-show exclusives, which granted now they're showing up. It's really more of first release at the show exclusives. And if you're good on the internet, you can get it later. It's kind of going that way. But then this is technically a BotCon exclusive, but it's the custom class. I think it was the 2016. I think it was the last custom class they did. They had Ratchet, but they had 4 you could make. And boy, did that anger some people because you're not going to get 4 of these. You're going to get 1, and maybe you can bug your buddies to each make the different one for you or try to pay them. Like, do y'all feel that the custom class exclusives, how is that different, or how does that treat your psychology about, oh man, I got to get in the custom class? I don't know if you guys ever did it, or did y'all didn't?
I've done it.
I did it. The TFCon, the Bob figure that they did was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. No, it was last year. It was 2018. It was Chicago.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I actually did. That was the only custom class I've done, but that was one of the ones I was lucky enough to get into and make that figure, and I was really excited that I was able to do that. So
I'm not a fan of custom classes where you have to sign up before you know what it is, because that happened, this year where it was already sold out by the time the figure was announced. And I was kind of like feeling that little bit of like, that fear of missing out type thing where it was like, oh man, it's going to be something really cool I'd want. And then I saw what it was. And I was like, oh, well, that's a relief. I have no desire to have that.
Same.
If they gave me that figure, I would not paint it and just keep it in its original colors and move on with my life.
Well, I think it's a little different with BotCon. So BotCon, what you
right.
on that Ratchet figure, right? Like, I mean, that still goes for insane money. If you can find one that has, the stickers unapplied and in the bags or whatever from that custom class, like, you're going to get some good money out of that.
And that was the only way to get the Ratchet from that mold, right? Like, otherwise,
Takara had.
Oh, right. That happened.
But then
I remember.
Had to buy it in like an entire set. Like, it wasn't just released by itself. So that's how I got the Ratchet.
Still cheaper than the custom class, at least aftermarket.
No, 100%. Like that. I mean, I bought the set and then I sold off the other figures from it. But yeah, like it was more expensive, but I think it was probably about the price of a Fun Pub figure.
Yeah, I really hate purchasing things sight unseen. I mean, it's just money and time, and the custom classes are fun, but they can take a long time. And so it's like, I want to know that I'm making something I really enjoy to both pay for this and spend that much of my time at the convention versus, sleeping in a bit that day and then hanging out with friends during the day. Like, it needs to be a good trade-off. And if it's an awesome figure, more of my friends will probably be in there, and with BotCon class, enough of us just started signing up every year because it's like, you know what, even if we hate it, you can sell it and get your money back for it, but I don't feel you can do that with TFCon custom
I think
custom
the year I
classes.
did it was a full 8 hours, and I mean, it was making a G2 Grimlock, which there's a lot of options for G2 Grimlocks out of the Fans Project figure. And I mean, I don't think people were jealous of that. You know, like it's cool, and my crappy 8-hour paint job looks well enough on my shelf that I still like it. But I mean, I don't really think people, if I were to put that up for sale, I don't think people would be tripping over themselves to get it. I think I might get $150 for it if I was lucky.
I mean, honestly, I think most of the TFCon figures like are usually extra stock of like some third party figure that won't sell.
They are.
And so like they may come up with a really neat character that that you can do, but there's like the core character itself. It's like Now, I will say that G2 Grimlock, I mean, that was years ago. That was 2016. I think that figure was just coming out. So, like, that actually was somewhat of a popular character. But, anymore, most of this stuff is, we found a warehouse with, with like, 50 extra figures. So, here you go.
What can we paint it into?
I definitely felt that way when they did Big Cannon. It was just like, ooh, Big Cannon, okay.
But I think that the custom class for me, I think is actually kind of neat because like I don't know, a lot of times the figures that I'm buying, like I'm not buying a bunch of extra or a bunch of extra figures in order to customize. And, you may have some like YouTube videos to go after or to watch for customizing. But like for the most part, like I don't really know how to customize, right? So the custom class is a different animal because like it actually tells you like how to take the stuff, all the sprues, how to paint it, how to do that. Like there's a lot of instructions, a lot of extra stuff to go with, with that. And that the custom class figure can kind of hit on that whole thing where, we talked about before about that it kind of like is your figure for the show and kind of
your
immortalizes your memory of it and kind of immortalizes the the show itself. But
but if you hate the figure you're making, being in there for 8 hours you're just like, it's not a good memory. It's not a memory you want. So
right exactly. So I feel like I was really lucky that I was able to make that Bob figure because that was a ton of fun and it was a figure that I like. And it didn't sell out right away, so I was able to get into the class last minute.
That was a good year.
I actually bought Black Arachneus from him because he didn't want it. He doesn't care about IDW, so he made it. And I took it and then touched it up a little bit, here and there, did some things like that. And I actually tweaked it because how you take the part on and off. Black Arachneus completely screwed it up and glued it on, and you couldn't even transform it anymore. So I froze it to freeze the glue in it, and then broke it off. Then went to the hardware store, bought a hinge. And then glued the hinge on, glued that on. So now you can bend it up and then transform it back and then transform it.
Oh, nice.
That's what I did. Yeah.
My goodness.
I made it a little project, and that part was fun. That part of it.
So you said you had multiple other examples.
Yeah. So here's another type that it's kind of like store exclusive, but it's the Million or Milan Publishing exclusives. So they're not native to America. It's not something that happens in America. But we've gotten this is the stepper repaint of Generations Jazz, of Turbo Jazz. But they've also done Go Shooter. They did Art Fire from the Generations Inferno. I believe these are ones that you technically get by you buy a magazine in Japan and then you can mail order it or it comes with it. But Japan has a lot of exclusives in Asia of that nature where you buy this thing and you get a thing, and it's not something we can directly get in the US, but so Big Bad has people that live in Japan, that do the whatevers to get it and they sell it through Japan. And it's a case of, it's like, oh man, Stepper's awesome, or Ricochet, whichever. And I love the black with the hot gold. It's those Sphinx colors that came out at TFCon this year. It's a hot deco, no matter what you do, but no one, I shouldn't say never, but we still have not seen a Generation Stepper of any sort, / Ricochet aside from Milan, and honestly, same with Art Fire and Go Shooter, which are the three I have for it.
We did though, right? We got the selects.
Yeah, the selects one.
What's the selects which?
It was based on the Power of the Primes mold.
Well, which one of the three?
The stepper.
We did. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's better. But
100%. That is a much better mold than.
and they gave him a target master, which is great too.
Yes.
Right. No target master, and he wasn't very great.
Yeah.
So Antoine in the chat was mentioning about the custom class that I guess you can cancel the custom class after they reveal the figure. So if you don't like it for whatever reason, like you do have that option to cancel. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, me neither.
So that's interesting. I'll have to remember that for next time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so do we feel exclusives like that are different where, you have to, it's kind of like the digital services we were talking about earlier, but it's some physical goods service, especially, in some other country in very limited numbers. But like, does that make y'all like have to get it? Or is it something that's like, oh, you know what, that's so rare or whatever that I'm just going to pretend it doesn't even exist unless it's like my most favoriteest thing ever.
I think that's what it does for me. Is it actually like it just raises the difficulty of obtaining it so much that I just can't have it. Like it's impossible. And I think I personally have a lot of those lines. Like there are a lot of ways to make me say I will not get that figure no matter what. Like for instance, just like it was only like a couple days ago that blue Bumblebee got announced, right? The Bump of Chicken one. That one.
Yeah, and that like isn't that like a band in Japan or something like that that's doing it? And there's it's like a limit of like 2 per person, and they won't mail it internationally. So
right, so it's going to be tricky to get. The asking price originally is going to be 4,000 yen, which is just under $40 for what was a basic class, Legends class, whatever they call it when it was small, like a $10-ish figure.
And it comes with a headmaster.
Right, which I think the retail, even on the Legends version that came with the headmaster, was like, in like the $25 range. So it's already a high price. And it's just like, that is kind of my line. It's like, do I want to pay $40 or more, probably going to be significantly more, to get a hold of it for a blue version of a figure I don't like that much? No, probably not. If it was $20 to $25, I might be interested.
What if it was in a darker blue or a metallic blue?
I'd be in trouble. Yeah. It would be difficult because when I saw it as a blue Bumblebee, I was like, "Oh no!
Is that glyph?
They put a cut on it?
Yeah.
I don't think even a glyph cut." And they did it, which is actually a loss for me, but I like it. I think it's a cool thing, but that just like that hurdle is too big for me to leap for that.
But I think it's interesting. Like I'm kind of the same way. I actually was going to get the figure because we were trying to like organize a group buy, and then it came out that it's like 2 per person and they don't do international whatever. And so for me, I'm kind of like forget it. But I'm sure that there are plenty of fans that are the exact opposite. That they're like, oh my God, like I can't get this now. I have to have it. So I'm gonna pay whatever it costs to get it.
$200 for that guy? Sign me up.
Right.
That one's a good example though of like just the level that completionists will have to go to for it. Because I imagine a lot of the people who are going to go to great lengths to get that figure do not know who that band is and have never heard any of their music. Which is, was
everybody
the case
loves
for me.
Bump of Chicken.
I went and listened to a few of their songs to see if I liked their music and wanted the exclusive. And it didn't help because I didn't really love them, but they seem fine. They're just not my genre.
I love how like that didn't even come into my mind to like be like, I should go ahead and watch this, or I should listen to this band to see if I like them before I get the exclusive.
I'm not going to own a piece of their memorabilia if they're a crappy band, which are not. They're fine. I'm just
not your thing.
Right.
So, I don't have it anymore, but an exclusive mold. And the only one that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure there's a few other out there, is the Chevy Evo Swerve. That was a mold made just for a release for Chevy as like a promotional, like if you came in like test drove a car or some crap. like, and that's obviously kind of hard to get, kind of easy. A lot of us Transformer, we have our social anxiety is so high that it's like, I gotta go talk to somebody and like test drive a thing that I don't want to test drive just to get a toy. Like, oh, I'm gonna have to lie about it, this and that. Like, were y'all collecting when that figure came out? Or if not, can you imagine if that happened today, a completely unique Transformer mold that's not even a bad mold for the time? How does that treat you?
I think we were all collecting when the Valvoline one came out.
Yeah.
That's
right?
not even
That
a
was just like-
Transformer.
it's not. It's not.
just a
but
brick.
It did motivate people to go after it.
It did. But that was like a mail-in thing, though. You didn't have to talk to people. You just had to buy some oil.
You had to go
Right.
to effort, though. You had to buy oil you didn't need.
Everybody can use oil.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, most people have car or not.
Okay, I
A lot
don't
of
change my own oil, so I don't need
I don't
oil
either.
sitting
But
around.
You can buy the oil, put it in your trunk, and next time you get your oil change, like, hey, use this oil.
True. Yes, use my Transformer oil. I bought this so I could get a toy robot.
No, you bought this so you could get a plastic brick. It doesn't transform even.
It's
not a
still a toy
robot.
robot.
Is it, though?
It's got a face.
But the funny thing I think about that Aveo thing is that I'm sure that there's people that test drove that car that didn't even know about Transformers, that don't care about Transformers, and they're like, what the hell is this? And got it. And didn't even know, and it's probably sitting in their shelf or in a box somewhere or whatever.
Or they threw it away.
Or they threw it away. And little did they know that. I think that it's not worth quite as much now, but how much was the value at the time?
Like, I mean, I want to say if you wanted it near-ish release, it was like probably a couple $100.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a unique mold. That's pretty notable. But when I sold mine over the past couple years, I mean, I think I got like $50 for it or something. I don't remember. I didn't pay $200 for it when I finally got it. It had already dropped when I finally got. Like, the hype was real, but then the hype died. Like, because we were like, oh, this is a nobody. It's not in the main line. I feel like it was so hard to get that people wrote it off, and like that initial rush of like gots to has it drove the price up very temporarily, and then no one else cared because they pulled a Nana, and they're like, doesn't exist. It's too stupid to get.
Right.
Doesn't exist. Which is probably a healthy mindset, to be honest.
I have to say that, like, I'm really in between liking and hating those things. Like, those really hard to get, but there's something about it that's really rare and exclusive, like a different
It has
mold.
to be fun. It has to be
Right,
fun
like
to
that 7-Eleven MP10
Mm-hmm.
that was sold in Japan.
The
Like that.
the Braun one too. There's been a ton of like half of the
Oh, man,
MP10s,
yeah.
like the baby.
But the
Napalm.
7-Eleven one appeals to
Yeah,
me
okay.
because the idea of having a 7-Eleven truck, because like I've always liked 7-Eleven as a place to go as a kid. Like, I have kid memories of getting Slurpees, and that was like, this would be cool to get. And it even came with, the Spike was remolded as a 7-Eleven employee, which I thought was super fun, but it was too
That is
expensive,
awesome.
right? Like, the price, with me not being able to go to a 7-Eleven in Japan to get it, the price of me obtaining it was too high, but I thought it was cool. Like, that was a fun thing to do, and I didn't mind the fact that the barrier was too high, because if I was desperate, I still could have gotten it. I did see one this weekend at
Orson had
TFCon
one.
for sale. Right,
Orson
I
had one.
could have bought it.
Yeah, he still has it for sale.
And it wasn't a high enough price that I could not have bought it if I really wanted to be that intense about my 7-Eleven.
Now, would you consider that a grail? Oh wait.
No. Because I have no intention to obtain it.
Yeah. All right. So the last example of an exclusive I have is what I call the double secret exclusive.
Secrets.
So this is the Club Seacons, which was going to be a Walmart exclusive, got canceled, was never going to happen, and then the club picked it up and made it a club exclusive where you could get it again. I feel that if this had came out at Walmart, I would not have been interested in it. It was a store exclusive. I'm like, whatever. I mean, I've become more and more in love with the Piranacon set over the past few years, to where like At some point, I think it would have ended up in my hands, but it's like, oh, it's a Walmart exclusive, whatever. I don't need Seacons, any more Seacons. I got the G1, whatever. But then it came out as a club exclusive, and at the time, I was collecting all the club stuff they did, anything FunPub did. And so I bought it, and it sold out really quick. I don't know what the aftermarket is on him these days. I don't know if he went up or if he's plummeted. I have no idea. But part of the appeal when the club did it was that, oh, it's something that we could have gotten and I would have ignored. But then they said, you can't have it. And then I wanted them to make it.
You know, it's a lot like that G2 Megatron we got with Selects a while back. It's the first Selects figure, the Combat Hero one.
Yeah.
That's a lot like it. And I really regret buying that thing. Like, really bad. Because I just don't like it. I got it because it was a weird thing. Other people were pumped about it. And it was like, oh, that didn't happen. It got canceled because it was crappy. And now it's here, so I should get one. And now it sits on my shelf, and I'm like, I can't get rid of it because it felt like it was an event to get it, but it looks stupid.
I am the alternate timeline, Anna, where you didn't buy it. Because I was like, oh, everyone's jazzed about it. And, there's a bit of that, I think we've talked about it before, the kind of the peer pressure in the community in a way. When everyone else is excited, you're like, oh, I guess I should be excited too. But then I was just like, man, I'm really not excited for that thing. And I held off. I almost bought it like 4 times. And then now I'm like, I don't miss it not being in my collection at all.
Good for you.
One of the few times I'm getting better about it. But yeah, so being able to say you can have it, you can't have it, and then, okay, I guess you can have it. I feel that artificially, raises it up so that you not only fear of missing out, you did miss out.
Oh, there's another one coming because MMC is doing the prototype version of RC.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There's a mold, which is interesting. Right. I really want it. I saw it and I was like, that's hideous. I love it. No.
Which I think is an interesting choice. Like I'm surprised because they've released 2 redecos of that RC already as convention exclusives. So like they had a stealth one and then they had the medic one or whatever.
Was the stealth the one with like the pumpkin face?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the heads.
That's the one. Yep. Yeah. So they released both of those. Also regret. And those were actually pretty neat. But then like this new one, I think it's interesting that they're releasing it as a mainline release because I'm not sure how well it's going to sell. Like, I know that you guys really like it, but I'm just not really sure. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be like, do I really need this? Like,
it's hideous.
Yeah, right.
It all comes down to production numbers. Like, unless we know how many they make and how many they need to make, there's a lot of business that goes on. If they're like, you know what? We made 100 and they sold out in an hour. They made what they needed to do. But if they're like, oh man, we need to make 1,000 to even do this run, they make 1,000 and they sell 100. Now it's an ultimate total failure.
I'm gonna be really curious with that figure though. If they're originally that they're planning on releasing that like as a regular release, and if they're gonna decide to do it as an exclusive for TFCon in Orlando.
Then you will have to get it for me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I think it'd be a case of not a TFCon exclusive, but first release at TFCon most likely. And if you're at your computer, refreshing throughout the weekend, you'll probably be able to pick it up.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because there are some figures coming out these days that I would have thought would have been exclusives. This is a good example. Is the Barricade. Like, I would have thought that would be an exclusive, not a retail figure. But it's just a normal retail figure. If people seem to be happy with it. But I would have expected a movie figure turned into a Generations figure to be an exclusive, not a mainline figure.
Yeah, and they did the smokescreen was an exclusive figure, right. Blue Streak. So it's like the 2 other regular ones that like hardcore fans are gonna want. And I don't know. I mean, maybe part of it is that again, this is a line for kids still. So when they're releasing it for Walmart,
I don't think it is.
Whatever,
this line, not so much, but almost.
But I think that when they're marketing this stuff to Walmart and to Target and whatnot, I think that there's still a lot of that in there because, like, that's a big part of, like, who buys the stuff on the shelves. So I'm just wondering, Yeah, like, because I mean, everybody knows who Prowl is, but it's like not everyone knows who Blue Streak is or Smokescreen. Like we do, but like my kids don't necessarily know who they are, and I think that kids probably know Barricade more than they know those other figures.
Yeah, I was going to bring up, like, I think Barricade making it into, like, the generations as toy line is part of the changing demographics as well. That Barricade was introduced in 2007. And he disappears somewhere near the end of the movie for whatever reason, because they're not written by anyone. And it shows up here and there throughout. But I think if you were 10 when that came out, you're in your 20s now. You're walking down the toy aisle, and I do think a lot of this is geared towards us. It's a different level of nostalgia now. They're like, oh crap, there's a Barricade figure. I loved Barricade because that's what I grew up with as a kid, and pop it off.
And here you now a monster face. Yay!
Yeah. And now I think Prime is going to start having some of that. We're seeing some of that already with Unicron Trilogy. Some of those things, even as lots of times exclusives, but some of it I think is going to be less and less exclusive just because that generation is now, they got their disposable income ready to go now, and they're getting nostalgic.
Yeah, the one thing I really hope with the these store exclusives, I know that some of the ones like Entertainment Earth did, it was a shared exclusive with Hasbro, so then you could just go and pick it up on Hasbro Pulse as well, and so not everyone had to go order it through Entertainment Earth, and so I really hope that they actually get to this point so that again, those people that are ordering this stuff internationally or whatever, that they can get to that stuff, that that even if it's Amazon or Target or whatever, that they can still get their hands in, not for like some crazy markup price.
Because that sure is interesting when you think about it, because a lot of us are, now that Pulse exists, and a lot of us got our 1 free year of Pulse shipping because we bought figures in that early portion of their existence, a lot of us have just been pre-ordering off Pulse and not going to Target, not going to Walmart, not going to Amazon, not going to Entertainment Earth, I suppose. So it's interesting to kind of see as Hasbro takes away the mainline market for us collectors, because we know about Pulse and we can pre-order, but then they're doing more store exclusives. So it's like, here's some exclusives, Target. Sorry, I took away your audience there. Sell your toys to kids, and you guys sell these exclusives too. It's interesting to me to kind of do it that way.
Times are changing.
Right.
And it's very interesting. It'll be, I think, even more interesting to see where we are in 10 years. Like, Hasbro, when they make a wave, they're like, oh, this is the wave breakdown. Here's how it ships or whatever. And talking to some, friends in the business or whatever, for a while there, they had it where, like, some things you can just order the character, but then they stop doing that. But then they do it a little more, or some other lines or companies do it, and it's constantly shifting. And they're like, dude, I'm not Walmart. I'm collectors. I need one of each. And, I need even amounts of them. You don't need to, bury me under 800 Starscreams when I sell only to collectors and they already bought it last wave. But, Target or Walmart's like, no, fine, give me more Starscreams. That's what I want. Because, it's just the casual people coming through that's buying it here. Not only, but, let's go with it as.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that is an interesting point, because, like the market of the people ordering off of like, Chosen Prime or Big Bad Toy Store or whatever is probably much different than the market like going to the store. Like we're probably the ones trying to get the weirdo things because we already have 20 Starscreams. We don't need another Starscream. But we do need a, whatever it might be, Barricade or something like that. So.
But yeah, no, specialty shops though have to buy it the same way the big guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen that at Big Bad, where it's like, if there's a wave of something, okay, you can buy the case for just a small markup and get the whole case, whatever. But then if you want the individual, it's like, oh, well, this fourth run of that Starscream is $20. But if you want, the rare new character that's in there, he's $40. Something to that nature, just because they're like, they know what's not going to sell. They know what they're going to have to end up clearancing. They got to make all their profit now off that odd guy.
So I'm going to say that I'm really proud of us, because we've gone over 90 minutes, and we've gone 90 minutes now, and we're just now off topic.
It's related-ish, but yeah.
Right. We segued. We finally segued, but we did a good job of staying on topic for 90 minutes. So
Look at
I think
us.
it's time to tie it up, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, lead us off.
So, oh, I should give final thoughts first, I suppose. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this was a good discussion on this topic. I think that I would really like to hear other people's opinions in the comments, on Facebook, whatever, on how motivating they feel exclusives are. Because I'm just curious about it, like from a personal level, like how motivated people are to actually get these things. Because I feel like I felt like I was going to go in, like, because I hadn't been to TFCon for years. And the first year I didn't come in with enough money to really think about exclusives. But this time I did, and I could have got exclusives. And I didn't come home with any, right? And that was interesting to me. And now, like a week after, I'm not feeling any sort of, sadness of missing out that I didn't get them. Like it's no problem. It's like, I still kind of feel like maybe I should go try to find one so I can commemorate the con, but I don't need to. And it's just, I'm interested to see what motivates other people. Like, do you feel like you have to get that for completion? Do you feel like you have to hunt them down or whatever? So yeah, that's where I stand. Like, I'm still interested in this topic of what really motivates us to get exclusives, because I do feel like they're not as hot of a property as they were back in the BotCon days. So I'm curious, what's changed? What gets people motivated to get these?
Well, I think that, again, a lot of us have been collecting for a long time. And so I know myself where, I've went to conventions in the past and I'm like, all the exclusives, like I have to have them all. And I've ended up buying those. And then I regretted some of them. And it ended up having to take a loss to sell, some of the figures, or I still have it because I know that I can't make the money back. And so, I try to be more selective with, what I'm doing, but I'm still not really doing that with Hasbro. So unfortunately, I'm getting pretty much all their stuff. And, some of them, I think, again, like that G2 Megatron, I'm kind of feel the same way where I'm like, like, I don't really need this, but like, I'm in it to win it, I guess. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that, again, I to reiterate, I have mixed feelings because I enjoy the exclusives because I feel like that, sometimes those are ways to get figures in our hands that we wouldn't get otherwise. Like, I would have been bummed if I didn't get that Ratchet figure, or the Skyward figure, or, some of those that Hasbro has done, that I'm really happy that, that they were able to use exclusives to complete the line. And I'm really happy that they're putting those repaints in as exclusives. And like, this is the same way, like, we didn't really touch on this, but like, all of these companies have to make repaints in order to help recoup the cost of the mold. They can't just like, they're not making enough of one to, to really make a profit on it. So like, this is kind of a way for them to make a profit on this stuff. And so I think that, it's a great way to kind of get this stuff in collectors' hands without it clogging the shelves of something that most random people, the most public people, don't care about.
Yes, for my final thoughts on it is that I think exclusives have a place. That the world has changed a lot since they started, as we have talked about a lot. And I think it'll continue to evolve. But I'm glad they're there to give us just kind of weird oddball releases like unproduced G2 Mirage color schemes, in the prototype RC color scheme. Like those are really appealing to me. I'm down with that. They're a good way to get some people to get them into the door for shows to help keep conventions running, especially since Hasbro pulled the carpet up from under BotCon. Store exclusive, I'm a little bit more meh about. What I think is important is no matter where the exclusive is that whoever is providing it, I hope they keep a focus on making the collecting fun. And that's, giving stuff that people want. Like, to me, whether you like it or not, the watermelon here is a hella fun release. You can just like, that's neat, that's cool. Even if it's not for me, you can like, I can see why I can see the niche market for it. So like, I didn't care about the Rat Bat or the Bulkhead, but there were audiences for them, so it's cool they got made. So I hope they continue to use it to even store releases to get fun stuff out to people, but look at making sure that it doesn't make collecting more of a burden and looked at it to make it fun, be it, again, open pre-order windows, a little bit more made to order, those stuff, and wherever that balance needs to be, for the store exclusives. Convention exclusives are a little different again, because again, you need warm bodies at the show for it to succeed. So our brains are weird. Our fear of missing out is really weird. But I think the less stress we can introduce and kind of try not to rely on people's fear of missing out about like, oh, it's a hidden exclusive, you better buy it now, you don't know what it'll be. I think the less we do of that and the more upfront we are with people on what it's going to be and, give alternatives, I think the more enjoyable the hobby will be for everyone. And we can just, buy toys, have fun, and then get drunk and terribly transform them for 4 hours. So, yeah, that's my spiel.
Agreed.
All right. Well, don't forget to check out some of our other shows. So we have a whole host of them. Put the schedule up at the beginning. But we have Microcasters Tuesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. We have TF Talk Weekly, which I know that there's with the convention that there's been a gap in some of those, but hopefully we'll get those up again. Ouch My Wallet on Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and then Cut the Tape Fridays at 5 o'clock. So yeah, check out our other shows, and then if you like what we do, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/TFYLP. We have tiers as low as $1 and all the way up.
Be there for Microcasters. It's going to be a wild week. It's going to be the Microcasters to remember.
Oh boy!
Wow, you're really setting us up here.
I am. It's going to be a big one.
For Ouch My Wallet, Lucas is going to be hosting this week, I think, because I have an EverQuest launch and I will be busy with that.
You can't ouch and EverQuest at the same time?
Not for an hour. If it was like a 15-minute drive by, I could be like, hey guys, got some toys. Oh, got to get back to my group. Unfortunately, but I'll be back the week after that unless something I don't realize is happening. But I think our calendar finally clears up a bit. And then, I can get back onto steadily hosting it. It's been patchy for me lately. I got too much to talk about over here still. All kinds of goodies. I got to get back on. But yeah. So yeah, next week will be a bye week for me, but I'll be back the week after that.
All right. Well, with that, we'll catch y'all later. And
Bye-bye.
Bye.